Oh yeah. All right, I'm starting the stream.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening. Welcome, everyone, to EmpowerEd's annual Teacher Voice Awards and Benefit. Thank you so much for being here. We are so grateful to have you all here and have your support. Before I jump into my welcome, I want to give a few reminders. You should have received a drink ticket on your way in. Please make sure to use that to help yourself have a good time. There's food here. Please also enjoy the food. And also this table of EmpowerEd merchandise is free merchandise for you to take. So please enjoy all of the EmpowerEd swag. My name is Sarah Cole. It has been my honor to work with EmpowerEd this year on the equity team, fighting for changes to DC's approach to school accountability, particularly trying to make sure standardized testing isn't the only way, and trying to really reduce the ways in which that is influencing how our schools are judged, because we know those tests do not capture our baby's brilliance. And I am so inspired by the work that I've been able to do alongside educators and fighting for the changes that need to happen in our district to make sure that all of our children are getting the education that they rightfully deserve. It means so much to be able to see this room full of people who are here to support our work, to support teachers, to support their voice, and most importantly, to support the students who we serve. It is also my honor tonight to introduce our executive director, Scott Goldstein. Scott taught in DC for 10 years before he began EmpowerEd. And in the 5 years since he has done that, he has partnered with dozens and dozens of teachers to help us better learn how to really amplify our voices to be able to make a meaningful impact on DC's education. So please join me in welcoming Scott Goldstein.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I got to start with a lot of thank yous. So I want to thank, first of all, Busboys and Poets, and Andy for providing us this space, and our servers and our host tonight. Round of applause for everybody hosting us. I want to thank Patricia, who is our lead organizer this year, Gabrielle DeBose, who has been our teacher facilitator, all of our teacher fellows who are in the room, and our board members. And I want to give a special shout out to Mark Vernon, who's in the back here, our lead sponsor, from Compass and the Mandy and David team for making this happen, and also Trade Bar for sponsoring teacher tickets, and also the many people who sponsored many teacher tickets to allow all of you to attend for free tonight, including Chris Horning, Aaron Palmer, Kent Withacombe, and so many others. Thank you so much for all of your support. Our work has had tremendous impact this year, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We've grown a lot in the 5 years that EmpowerEd has existed. We're going to start by talking a little bit about the work that we've done. We're going to hear from some phenomenal elected officials in the city, and then we'll hear from our awardees. So I want to start. Trisha, we might need you to record this. Do you mind? No. All right. So I want to start by just talking about the amazing work that our team has done. We are based on, we really center our work on 5 values: democracy, equity, representation, opportunity, and growth. And we focus on those values by building teams of diverse educators across both our DCPS schools, our public charter schools, and to allow them to live those values in the ways that they choose to advocate to enhance and make our education system more equitable in DC. So one of the things that we really focus on is how do we bring together a diverse group of educators to share their experiences and to inform policymakers. One of the main ways we do that, as you can see here, is by bringing together the city around all of the stakeholders, from teachers to students to principals, from elected officials to policymakers, to come together to find solutions. Our hashtag is always teacher solutions. We are interested in the ideas of the people who are in the classrooms every day, the students, the teachers, and the families, the people most connected to our young people, the people most connected to our schools, and the solutions they have to improve our system. Whether that's about teacher retention, recruiting and supporting and retaining more Latina educators, or any of the issues that we've worked on, our goal is to bring together teachers with those people who can make those policy changes. So a core part of our mission is uplifting Black and Latino voices in our education system. We'll shout out some of the amazing educators who have done that. We had our first ever Black Educator Story Lounge event this year, an opportunity for Black educators to have a space to themselves, to tell their stories about what it is like. I see many of the people who told stories here in the room, to tell their stories about the triumphs, the challenges of being a Black educator in our district schools, and the focus that we've had over the past several years on recruiting, supporting, retaining more Latino educators in the city. Our impact has been enormous in the time that we existed, and I'll say, when I started EmpowerEd, I was still in the classroom. I was teaching at Roosevelt High School without the plan to leave the classroom, and I, was really heartbroken by seeing how much teacher turnover we had in the city and how much that was really impacting our students, and how our students would internalize that the teachers were leaving them. And what I knew from all of the teachers who I knew was that we had adult problems that were forcing teachers out, right? Problems in the adult culture that was forcing teachers to leave. We desperately wanted to be there and to stay there and continue to serve our students. And so I went to a state board of education meeting about 5 years ago, and they were holding a hearing on teacher turnover. And I went to testify about teacher retention from my vantage point. I saw it at the school. But what made an impact on me was not the testimony or the conversation with state board of education members that night. What made an impact on me that night was how few teachers there were at a hearing about teacher retention. And when I started to look at it, I went back through the archives and realized, on average, we had 2, 3, maybe 4 teachers testifying, sometimes 5 or 6 people total on the list, at the one place where there was a monthly opportunity for teachers and other stakeholders to have their voice heard. And so I thought, not only do we have to do something about teacher retention, we have to do something about having more diverse teacher voices represented in these policy spaces. Because I'll say the few people that were showing up in those spaces looked like me. And I didn't feel like we could stand by and allow only a representation of teachers that did not represent our students, that did not represent our broader city, to be the people influencing policy in the city. And so we needed to do something to elevate more diverse voices, including a majority of our educators and our students who are Black and Latino in DC. And so that's what drove me to start EmpowerEd. And since we've existed, we've had a 2,000% increase in teacher testimony due to the organizing that we've done. And as part of that, we've had a 400% increase in the amount of teachers of color who have testified to the State Board of Education or to the DC Council who we have directly organized. And so, I hear sometimes people talk about how should we listen just to the people who are organized? But they were organized, but they have an agenda, right? If not for the organizing, we would be hearing from 2 or 3 or 4 teachers who don't represent, right, our full teaching force. So the organizing is what makes sure that we listen to a diverse representation of educators and that we get the policy right. And I'm really proud of being diverse by design, that our fellows every year represent student workforce, our students and our teacher workforce in the diversity that we build among our fellows and represented in our work. We're driving the conversation, as you can see all the news articles highlighted about the work that our teachers have done, the op-eds that they've written themselves. And we're agile in our organizing to meet a crisis, like how we took all of our work outside when the pandemic happened, including our own meetings that you can see up there, and the advocacy we did for outdoor learning that we'll highlight in just a moment. We're also teacher-led, but we are not about teachers alone, right? Meaning our campaigns are led by teachers, but they are to involve students and parents and families and others. And so we know that we need all of those voices to make effective policy and change. And so teachers lead our campaigns. They don't do them alone. And one of the things I'm really proud of this year is our public education canvas. We canvassed, instead of putting out a digital survey about issues in DC education, we canvassed 500 people in the city, including interviewing street vendors in Columbia Heights, every one of them up and down the strip, giving them the questions orally and allowing them to respond, the people who could not read them, so we could get their impressions on issues in education. We went out to the festivals. We went to the barbecues and the cookouts. We went to youth events, and we canvassed 500 total people to get a diverse representation of, an accurate representation of what our city thinks about education issues. And we go where the teachers take us, not where the funders take us. And so sometimes that means we are a grassroots organization. We are not driven by big corporate or foundation money. And what that means sometimes is we take on some controversial issues others won't take on, because our teachers have told us those are the issues that we want to take on and prioritize. So we've taken on things like, I'm so proud of the representation in education Pathways project that our teachers launched that ended up funding $1.3 million in last year's budget to start a pilot of debt-free pathways for students and paraprofessionals to become educators, thanks to the advocacy of some of the teachers in the field. And the council members, Councilmember Henderson, who made that happen. We took action on school quality and accountability. You can see the banners. I'm not going to call out the person who makes these, but we have some beautiful artists. We've taken action on control of our governance system, which is not an easy issue to take on. But I'll say some people may have noticed there's an election happening right now. And if you look at the issues that were on the agenda 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, the center of our work has been on teacher retention. That question has been asked in almost every forum of candidates in this election. That was not true 5 or 6 years ago. And it's thanks to the work of the state board and thanks to the advocacy our teachers have done to elevate that issue. And the same goes for governance, which has been asked again and again in this cycle, which was not a big issue before. And we've leaned into issues of equity, like funding student literacy. And I want to shout out Representative Chang, who's here, who made this happen, and others, to make sure that we would get training for teachers to teach the science of reading the way we know is most effective. And so we also pushed for funding and equity in outdoor learning. We restored money for blueprints. We bought for money for restorative justice in our schools and got $950,000 for school talk in this budget. So we've had some real wins for an equity-driven agenda. You can see an overview of the work that we've done together. And beyond our advocacy, which gets most of our attention, we actually probably spend most of my time in schools. And that is doing the work day by day, school by school, to work with teachers and administrators and school leaders together to build trust, to enhance a positive adult culture and a school environment so that they can retain their teachers. So we're not only doing the advocacy and the big picture, but we're in schools every day, working with schools like Anacostia and Dunbar and Ida B. Wells and Monument Academy and Sulla Public Charter School and others to work with their administrators and their teachers to build wellness and retention in the schools. I'm going to close out so we can get started with our speakers here. I want to mention just a couple other things real quick, which is, in the 10 years since mayoral control and other education reforms have happened, DC lost more Black educators than any city in the country and gained more white educators than any city in the country. We'll hear a little bit more about that in a second. But in a system where half of our students are in charter schools and half are in public schools, we knew that it wasn't okay to not have an outlet and voice for our public charter school teachers, right? So we want to organize across public charter and DCPS teachers. We wanted to make sure that we worked to specifically intentionally recruit and support and retain educators of color. And our students and educators and staff are doing amazing work in their schools every day. And you'll see that shine tonight. But as we celebrate the successes that we're having every day, we also advocate fearlessly, because we will not be satisfied with a system in which the majority of our Black and Latina educators is a staggering gap in achievement and opportunity with our Black and Latina students in the city. When we have staggering opportunity gaps in experience gaps, in the experiences that our students get to have, whether they're in a school in Ward 5, 7, or 8, or whether they're in a more affluent school and neighborhood, the hugely destabilizing effect of teacher and principal turnover and the long-lasting adult mentorship that our students lose when we have that kind of turnover. And we will not be satisfied with the system of school champ that tells our students furthest from opportunity that they're the ones who have to travel the farthest to get it. We want a quality neighborhood school in every single neighborhood. And we will not be satisfied. And we won't be satisfied either by a school rating system that does damage to our students and our schools and the perceptions they have of themselves and the representation that shows of themselves. And we won't be satisfied either by a system that shifts from stars to numbers. We're going to make sure we support our schools and shift to real supports. And these are the kind of fights that our teachers have taken on. And what I'm most proud of is that they bring seriousness to it, concrete, detailed, policy-oriented solutions to represent their students every day. So we're going to hear a little bit now from some of our elected officials, and then we're going to get to our awards. So I'm going to start by bringing up one of the fiercest public education advocates in our city, who constantly listens to the voices of students and teachers and finds every single creative way to make sure their voices are heard. And that is Dr. Carleen Reed, our Ward 8 supervisor.
I would say that we need folks to push grow your own programs in DC, but EmpowerEd has done that, and it was funded. And currently, our only publicly funded HBCU is engaged in that program. I would say that our city needed a grassroots effort to get the opinions of everyday people related to reducing bias in our rating system. And EmpowerEd did just that. And when those recommendations were under attack, you stood up and you showed up after work when you were tired mentally and physically, Maya Bone. And reminded folks how that system was compromising the livelihood of Black and brown children. When a parent was at her wit's end with our education system because the police were called for her child not wearing a mask on the bus. You were there, EmpowerEd. Good evening. I am Dr. Carlene Reed. I am the Ward 8 representative to the DC State Board of Education, and welcome to Ward 8. I guess I have my own personal story to share about EmpowerEd. I am trained as a speech pathologist in my background, working with children with moderate profound disabilities. But I was at one point working at OSSI, and one of the roles that we have during oversight season is you have to watch all the testimony to prepare either funnel information to counsel who has questions or to the superintendent who sometimes needs a little assistance with just getting the deep facts. So I remember about year 2, I was sitting there watching testimony and all these blue shirts kept showing up. And not just showing up, but y'all were saying all the stuff that I couldn't say as an OSSI worker. So you've been showing up for the city and related to education since 2017. I know our great council member, Janice Lewis George, is under the weather and can't be here, but she always reminds us to be unbought and unlost. There's a lot of, there's a lot of buy-in of our education system. Ward 8 has over 40, I think we're coming to 46 schools, but always people are trying to say we're the worst at certain statistics. We have to make sure our system has quality and not just quality for someone's pockets. So I ask that you continue to fight, you continue to show up, you continue to risk it all because our students need it. So thank you so much. And if you are not an EmpowerEd member, please support any way you can. Even if you're not in education, take some of these points that these educators are saying and repeat it to folks. Donate, because they, time. We also need funds. And just be attached to our education system because our children truly need it. Thank you all. And again, I hope you all enjoy the evening and welcome to Ward 8.
Thank you so much, Dr. Reed. I'm going to bring up now our at-large council member, Christina Henderson. And I want to say, as you come up, that Councilmember Henderson has reinvented the role of council member in my mind. She does the role in a way that I have never seen before, in the way she engages the public, in the way you talk honestly to the public. And I can count on, because I'm always getting my text fingers ready and my emails ready, but I can count on that she's going to say the thing I was about to text or email on the dais when she's up there in the council, because it happened just the other day. So there was a proposal to include, which is great, include teachers in the first responders housing incentives program. And that was proposed, but there was a little short on details. And one of the first things that came to my mind, thinking of Patricia Stamper and our other paraprofessional advocates, was they better be including paraprofessionals. So I'm looking real quick to see if that was on there. And before I can look it up and figure it out, Councilmember Henderson asked to be acknowledged and said, what's the definition of educator here? Are we talking about paraprofessionals? Are we talking about assistant teachers? Are we talking about our principals? And so I can count on that Christina Henderson is always thinking from the vantage point of a student, from the vantage point of a teacher, from the vantage point of a principal before she makes policy. and that is a treasure to have in a council member. She's someone who's worked in education before and worked on the council's committee on education. And so we know when she comes to these issues, she comes with expertise and the knowledge of the firsthand experiences of the people who are in our schools. So grateful to have you here.
Good evening, everyone. And Scott, thank you so much for that warm introduction. It's so good to be with all of you this evening. Again, my name is Christina Henderson. I'm one of your at-large council members, and I do want to also bring greetings on behalf of Councilmember Lewis George, my comrade in arms, who is down this week, but I know that she wanted to be here as well. I want to thank you so much for coming out tonight to celebrate the hard work of a group of communities who we could not function well without, which is our educators. So let's give our teacher honorees this evening a big round of applause. Scott talked about my background in education, but the thing is, I've actually never been a teacher. And one of the reasons when I think back to, I had the opportunity to, but I got so caught up in the idea that I wouldn't be a great teacher because I had so many fantastic teachers that I wanted to do my best to support in other ways. And so listening to teachers in the advocacy space has been one of the ways that I feel like we can push the voices forward. We have always known that educators are the backbone of a healthy community. And during the height of the pandemic, we specifically saw your resiliency. We saw virtual story times, creative lesson plans, door-to-door outreach, and so much more. And even though that all started in 2020, it has not stopped. We have seen it time and time again. And so having conversations with some of you, I know that you're tired, but I want you to know that your work has not gone unnoticed. I want you to know that your work has not been appreciated. And so I also want to speak to, Scott talked about the impact of EmpowerEd in particular, seeing a 2,000% increase and the number of teachers who've been participating in State Board of Education meetings and DC Council meetings. And again, we see it. I can think back to when I was the head of the Council Committee on Education. And we had a group of teachers who came to us who they said they didn't feel comfortable enough actually participating in the hearings. And so we did a teacher roundtable meeting in the basement of a library off the record, just so that we can create a space where teachers felt comfortable sharing what was happening in and out of their buildings. Because, I can come and visit, but I don't know the day to day. And I'm very keenly aware that when we come to visit, it is organized, it is structured. We're going into the classrooms where people have had, a heads up and those kinds of things. And so we rely on teachers to know what's really happening in the rooms. And in particular, over these last 2 years where you haven't been allowed to have outside external visitors, it's been incredibly important to hear your thoughts and perspectives. And I just want to speak to a couple of things, even in this budget, that came from the advocacy of teachers. So Scott talked about Rep DC, that was last year, but just this week, we added a collective $10 million additional dollars for DCPS and public charter schools who have high concentrations of at-risk students. Because we've heard from teachers, not only did we need additional dollars, but that we needed the dollars on the school level for principals and teachers and LSATs to be able to control where that money goes. And so that's in this budget. So that was the advocacy of this $18 million advocated over 4 years for safe routes to schools action plans. The way that teachers have shown up talking about safety, not just gun violence, but from traffic violence, and ensuring that the areas around your schools are safe. So $18 million for safety infrastructure around schools, that was in this budget. An additional $6 million to make sure that we are providing a nurse at every school. Now, we've been talking about this for a long time. Feeling in my bones, we finally got there with DC Health, we will see. $1.3 million to support structured literacy professional development for our educators. That was something that was pushed by and so we're really excited about that. And there's so much more. And so I just want to express my appreciation. And I also want to express my appreciation for those of you who do come forward, who email us, who send me DMs, some of y'all slide into my DMs, hey, Councilmember Henderson, this and that is going on. We find it so important to know. And if I can ever be of support and help, please let me know. Because like I said, I feel like our educators are the backbone of a healthy community. And so we need to do everything we can to support you. So again, to the teacher honorees, congratulations. Thank you so much for your work. And thank you for having me tonight.
All right, we are going to bring up now an amazing person in Congressman who was an educator himself, and that's rare. We don't get a lot of educators in the halls of Congress. And I want to say a few words about Representative Bowman, who many of you know from all of the progressive positions he's taken, who has provided the lifeblood to the movement in recent months. But Representative Bowman has taken unpopular positions in education that we don't get a lot of educators in the halls of Congress, but we definitely don't get a lot of educators in the halls of Congress that have pushed hard about the racist and racially biased effects of standardized testing, as Representative Bowman has done in the past. We might get some educators in the halls of Congress, but we don't get too many who understand restorative justice and the need for restorative justice in our schools. And so on issue after issue, he's pushing the envelope. He is bringing the experience as an educator, as a principal, as a school founder into the halls of Congress, into our national conversations about education. And that is a huge assistance to those of us who are fighting these local fights every day to make our schools more equitable, to promote restorative justice, to reform school governance and standardized testing, and taking on the tough issues, to have a champion like Representative Bowman in Congress. So thank you so much for being here, ladies and gentlemen, Representative Jamal.
Peace and love, how y'all doing? Thank you so much for the invite. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for that warm introduction. Congratulations to all the honorees. Where are the honorees? Raise your hand if you're an honoree. Please give them a round of applause. Congratulations, congratulations, congratulations. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your love of the work. Because you cannot be an honoree unless you have love. True, deep, real love for the work that you are doing, for the kids that you are serving, for the families that you are serving, and for the communities you are serving. When teachers talk about love and when activists in education talk about love, it's not a cliche for us. When people ask us why we're doing this, how is the work going, and they ask questions like that, the core answer is love. When I worked in education for 20 years, I was a teacher, I was a school counselor, I was a middle school principal. I did it for 20 years. I went to work every day. When you're sick, you push through, you do what you got to do, and you do it because you love the work that you do. But you also realize how important that work is to not just transforming the lives of the kids and families that you serve, but transforming the nation into what it is meant to be and what it claims it wants to be. That work, that real work lives in our schools each and every day and lives in our classrooms as a sacred space. So I would not be here in Congress if it wasn't for my time as a teacher. I would not be here in Congress if it wasn't for my time as a school counselor. I don't even know if you know I was a school counselor. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my time as a middle school principal, because when you're in those spaces, all of the issues of society intersect at your doorstep every day, intersect in your classroom every day. When a child is struggling to learn a particular topic or content or reading or whatever it is, you know that that is connected to something in their family, community, society, etc. It's also connected to historical discrimination. And we have to be honest and tell that real story. There's a reason why we have an achievement gap that's rooted more in economics than it is in race. We got to talk about the economic issues there and the strategic political decision-making that's led to certain communities remaining in poverty while others have not. And we have to talk about how poverty creates complex traumas that lead to some of the learning challenges that our kids face. And unfortunately, not enough educators even know about this. So when we talk about the school to prison pipeline and not implementing restorative justice, is because we quick to put Black and brown kids into special ed before really trying to find out what's going on. So all of that experience, all of that knowledge, if you will, led me to open a school, led me to pursue a doctorate, and led me to run for Congress against a 31-year institution, and I won. I didn't win because of me. I won because of the coalition we had, but because of my training as an educator. So, and an education activist, by the way. So it wasn't about just doing the work in classrooms and schools. It was about being an activist in the community on the ground. And that's what you all are. So I need for you to continue to be activists, because in order to save our democracy, we need educators at the front of the line. And we need educator activists at the front of the line, speaking truth to power. We need you at the local level, at the state level. Sorry, I know DC don't have a state. My bad. We worked on it. I'm an original co-sponsor. We're trying to get it done. Well, again, isn't that crazy? Like, what? That's crazy. But also, if you don't have consistent engagement and relationships with your member of Congress and the senators, you have to consistently engage them. Because yes, fight locally, but please, you gotta engage Congress, because Congress has a lot of power to do a lot of things. And in order for, we need, I'll say it this way, I was sworn into office January 3rd. January 6th, there was an insurrection. It was an attack on our nation's capital, the first attack on the capital since the War of 1812. It was done by white nationalists. We just had a horrific massacre in Buffalo, New York, facilitated by someone who's following something called the Great Replacement Theory. He literally researched the closest Black community, drove 200 miles to slaughter Black people. This is what he did. Tens of millions are being radicalized every day online because they think Trump is the official president and they think the Great Replacement Theory is real. So we may see more of what happened in Buffalo across the country. And we see mass shootings every day. And speaking just briefly about the Great Replacement Theory, how many of you know about eugenics? Raise your hand if you know about eugenics. Many of you do. And as we know, when slavery ended in this country, it ended in terms of chattel slavery. There are other forms of oppression and slavery that persisted in our society. Jim Crow is one. Eugenics is another. The systemic degradation of the Black race via sterilization, but also via standardized testing and how they're designed. There's a direct line from the eugenics movement, sterilization, the creation of standardized tests, and what they've been used for.
Yes.
And it connects directly today to the Great Replacement Theory. The bottom line is the white race is king, everybody else, get out of here. So our fight, and if you don't believe our fight is rooted in that, who was our previous president? How did he get there? And ask yourself this question: if it weren't for COVID, what if we didn't have COVID? Would he be president again? Ask yourself, think about that. So, sorry to, tell you all of that. But if we're not honest about who we are, we will never achieve the vision and the ideals of our democracy. We have to be honest with who we are. We have to be honest with how we got here. And then we can create a new vision for where we need to go. And I think that vision includes all of us, a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-economic, multi-religious, multi-gender democracy where everyone can thrive. But we need leaders and we need help. So there were, and I'll close on this, and sorry for speaking so long. There, throughout American history, we've had the abolitionist movement, the suffrage movement, the LGBTQ movement, many movements throughout history, civil rights movement. And it was those movements that made transformative change. We need another movement right now. And we need people in the streets and on the phones and writing letters and on social and on email and a part of this movement, not for a season, but at least for a decade. And I say for the rest of our lives, because democracy is a contact sport. And if we don't engage and keep it, we will lose it. And we are close to losing it right now. So I need you, we need you, our children need you, and you know it. So I need a national teachers movement. I need a national children's movement. And I need a national parents movement to lead this human rights movement that I think we need right now. So it's up to y'all to start that movement. So after you have fun tonight, let's get started. And I'm here to support you in any way I can. God bless you. I love you. Have a good evening.
All right, what we're gonna do real quickly is, before we get to presenting each awardee, we're gonna there's a lot of food there that is not on the table. So we're gonna take like a 10-minute break or so. I'm gonna ask all the honorees to come up and take a picture with the council member and the congressman. We'll take 10 minutes or so for everybody to get their food, get their drinks, and then we will resume. All the honorees up here, please. All right, so I get all the honorees on stage. I'm gonna see if we can make it work on this. We can make it work on the stage. And Dr. Reed, the council member on the side, and then whoever's in the middle, I'm gonna ask you to hold me. This much. Hold me. Just to get it so we're about to have two rows. Let's take a beer. Take it down, man. All right, go for it.
Just for one.
Looking for me? Miss. Miss. Looking for me? Okay. All right. All right. Two more. You're a fellow. Any other fellows? Teacher fellows? I don't know. Hello? Teacher fellows, any of our fellows? And our state board of education members. We have all the fellows from the board. One more. Hey, Ruth. And Emily. Emily. Is Emily and Oliver? All right, we good? Hold on, Ruth. One more. All right, last picture. Come on in. That worked out. I mean, All right, we're going to get started again in just a moment. If you can get back to your seats. All right. So we are going to start with our teacher honorees tonight. And we have so many amazing teachers every year. So this is a difficult process, but I'll tell you one thing we do is we're going to honor both some of our teacher fellows who have worked with us throughout the year. And we also reached out to principals, some of whom are here tonight, to ask for their nominations for teachers. And so we're going to read some of their words and some of the wisdom about some of these amazing teacher advocates, people who have worked with EmpowerEd, people who are doing amazing work in their own schools every day. So I'm going to start with our first award, which is our Excellence in Group Advocacy Award. And that is going to Sarah Cole, Maya Baum, Cody Norton, Armand Cuevas, and Raymond Mullins. This team, we have 5 advocacy teams every year. Our democracy, equity, representation, opportunity, and growth. Our equity team, all of our teams did amazing work this year. And our equity team, man, they worked extra hours. Our fellows are volunteers. So this equity team pushed the envelope. They showed up consistently every single time their voice was needed. And often that was with an hour notice, a day notice. And they pushed up and they showed up. And every single time they came with concrete solutions, they came with brilliant ideas, and they pushed our policy leaders, even when it was uncomfortable, to do the right thing. This year, our equity team focused on 2 principal missions. One was about reforming our focus on standardized testing, and the other was reforming our approach to school accountability, so it was more about the way we support our schools than rating and shaming our schools. And so this was amazing work that our team did this year, because not only did they let our leaders know the effects that it has when we rate our schools and the effects that it has when we label our students and our teachers, but they prescribed very specific solutions for replacing it. They came up with their own model of what a dashboard approach instead of a rating would look like. They came up with their own models of indicators that we should use. They surveyed widely, both surveyed in the city, and then they also surveyed students in their own schools about what they thought about ratings. They surveyed at community events. They prepared testimonies. And even when their work was theoretically done, they are still working right now. So we have called on them as proposals have come before OSSI and before the state board. The other day, they had maybe 2 or 3 hours, and we got back pages and pages from some of them in emails within minutes of them getting the documents to look at. So these are teachers who at the end of their school day and all of the exhaustion are coming home from all of the work that they're contributing and all that they are doing to, in some ways, empty and then fill our students, right? Empty their cups in a way to fill our students with so much every day, are pouring back so much, not only to their students, not only to their families, but into our city to try to improve equity in so many ways in our education system. So I'm going to award our first award as group advocacy to Maya Baum, Sarah Cole, Cody Norton, Raymond Mullins, and Armand Cuevas. All right. Our next award, we're going to talk about some amazing advocates, 2 people who have done so much to make outdoor learning happen here, specifically in Ward 8. So, Sophia Barada is a teacher at Henley Elementary School. And Sophia is the leader of our opportunity team and has been waging a dogged fight, not only for outdoor learning and equity to happen in the city throughout her years teaching and her years at Henley Elementary, but also to have it happen at her own school, which was not easy. It's an opportunity she wanted for her students to be in person, to experience the joy of learning and interacting with each other, even as COVID made it more difficult to do that. And has fought hard to make her school get the grant funding it needed, to get around the regulations it needed to get around, to make sure that outdoor learning could happen and her students could enjoy that at Henley Elementary. Michelle Walden was born and raised in DC, did her master's at Trinity University, and realized working and has worked directly with youth. She has been a school counselor for 12 years with DCPS at Johnson Middle School in Southeast DC. She has a passion for working with students and families, and I want to read to you from her philosophy that she sent us. There were teachers who believed and invested in me regardless of the attitude and behavior, and believed in me even when some counted me out. I have to put that same energy and investment in my kids. I would be doing them a disservice if I did anything less. Ms. Walden advocates for her students at Johnson. She advocates with Ward 8 and the Education Council for building repairs and upgrades and access to resources, advocates with WTU and the PTO for outdoor education resources and for resources for students to engage in STEM. So I want to welcome up Sophia Herrera and Michelle Walden for their advocacy for outdoor. All right. Our next award. Oh, there it is already. I was already on. Sorry. Our next award. If anybody knows Señorita Lake, you know how much she shines. Rosalind Damiana Lake Montero is an Afro-Dominican experienced Spanish teacher, author, youth advocate, entrepreneur, everything. And I realized stop controlling our Instagram account. I saw those yesterday. And with a demonstrated history of working with students in student affairs and services across different institutions in many ways, in schools and out across the DMV area. And her mission and her passion is about holistic education experiences through fine arts, through sport, through digital literacy, through global exposure. In her free time, she loves to paint, to write, perform poetry, hiking, or the beach, spend time with her family. You didn't mention dancing. She's an expert dancer as well. And Señorita Lake brings incredible passion to everything she does. She brings conviction to everything she does. And there is no one that Señorita Lake cannot talk to and convince and bring on the team. So for her charisma, her expertise, her passion, and all of her work, Señorita Lake. All right. Our next award for inclusion and collaboration goes to Adji Kuja. Adji's got fans everywhere he goes. Adji's got a crew and fans everywhere he goes. Adji's been in DC for the past 11 years. Hold up. Where he's worked in banking, he's worked in finance, and now currently in education. He graduated from the University of Central Florida, graduated from graduate school at Trinity Washington University. He's passionate about educational equity, about understanding how to incorporate inclusivity into the classroom setting and learn about data-driven methods and improve the quality of education. Adji is the type of person who brings people together with purpose. He's a member of our representation team, and he was consistently pushing a really clear vision for how to support educators of color to become school leaders, and frequently brought new voices, new perspectives, new people into our conversation. We had a Black Educator Story Share I referenced earlier in the year, where Adji is always bringing in new people to allow not only for him to share his perspective, but for them to share their perspectives, and not only possessing the mic himself, but always passing the mic and bringing and including more people in his collaboration. So Adji's been an incredible asset to the Whittier community, to our advocacy, and to our city. Adji. All right, I got the cheering crew. All right, our next one, going to two educators, is to Luz Palas Lopez and Johanna Figueroa. For advocacy to support our immigrant educators, our Latina educators, and advocacy for ELL students and families. So Luz is a pre-K teacher at Murray Reed Elementary School, and she's a Spanish immersion teacher in the dual language program. Throughout the year, she's been a strong advocate for Hispanic and Latinx students and teachers throughout the district. She's participated in the WTU Latinx Advisory Group, as well as presented at the recent EmpowerEd Teacher Solution Summit. She's been working with us for a couple of years, actually it's probably 3 years or more now, persistently on this work to make sure that we recruit, we support, we retain our teachers. And she has waged some tough battles and brought the message to the right people to make sure that we're supporting our immigrants and our immigrant students and our immigrant families in DC. Joanna Figueroa is an Afro-Latina native of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Joanna is an educator, has been an educator for 5 years. She taught high school history and middle school math. She's taught and coached Girls on the Run, for those who know that program, and high school basketball. Her principal says Ms. Figueroa is an advocate for our students, ELL families, and always goes above and beyond expectations to ensure ELL students have an inclusive learning experience. So to both Ms. Palais and Ms. Figueroa for their excellent advocacy for our ELL and immigrant students, families, and educators. All right, we have a couple more awards. Our next one is for Mia Rutherford for parent engagement. And Mia is an enthusiastic early childhood educator at Excel Academy. She has been teaching for 7 years, but she says it feels more like she was born into it. Mia says the best part of teaching is creating strong community and getting our youngest learners excited about exploring the world around them. And I want to read some words from Mia's principal, Principal Daniel, who says Mia is an extremely dedicated to the success of our families and our students as an ECE teacher. She sets high academic standards and takes the time to explain and show parents why it is necessary, even if they have struggled with the idea initially. And she told an incredible story about Mia bringing in parents, one who was hesitant about whether her student needed to know the letter names and the sounds, or that should wait until kindergarten. But instead of isolating that parent and their concerns, she invited the family in, she taught with them, she talked with them, she showed them videos. They had lunch together, and collectively they came to an understanding about the expectations for their students and the importance of those high expectations. Collectively show the parent what is possible and the urgency of now. And the principal says our pre-K4 students now have the strongest foundational literacy skills, thanks to her advocacy. Her advocacy for the students' needs while managing their thoughts and feelings of the parents, as well as a model for all educators. So for our parent engagement and collaboration work, Ms. Rutherford. All right, we have 2 more awardees tonight. So our next one is Erin Scott. Erin is a highly effective 14-year veteran teacher in DC Public Schools. She is born and raised in Raleigh, North Carolina. She received her bachelor's in English and her master's of education in curriculum and instruction from Howard University. She believes that all children can learn, especially the ones who say that they can't. She says it's my job to meet them where they are and motivate them to soar far beyond expectations. Ms. Scott is an active member of her school's academic leadership team, and also, for which she's winning this award today, attended a 2-day Courageous Conversations training with the principal and another teacher, and led Courageous Conversations training for faculty twice at the beginning of the school year to help schools begin to engage in, sustain, and deepen interracial dialogue at the school. Not easy work, and she engaged in it fully and brought that work to the school. Her principal says when she sees a need in our community, she addresses it. And in addition to this, Ms. Scott is a highly effective expert educator and a testament to the work of our school. Ms. Scott. And last but not least, Miss Althea Smith. Althea Smith is a native Washingtonian and a product of DC Public Schools. She's completing her 41st year of teaching. And believes in a strong focus on student learning and a hands-on approach. Her Principal Lyons Lucas, my kids also go to school. So this is my Powell Elementary family over here. Lyons Lucas says that in her work as a literacy teacher, Ms. Smith is very mindful of text and reflective of the diverse demographics at Powell. When reviewing a unit, Ms. Smith reviews the diversity of the characters and the authors and ensures that students have exposure to diverse perspectives. For example, Ms. Smith worked with her partner teacher to make sure a unit replaced stories that portray female characters as either finding a way for a man or easily distracted by shiny objects with new myths that align to the hero quest and arcs of redemption. She holds all of her students to high expectations. She has led 80% of her students to reaching their end of year goals prior to the end of the school year, and it's linked to consistency, clear expectations, and love. So for bringing that work to her students and the windows and mirrors that she provides for all of them, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. I really don't know. I don't know what to say. 41 years has gone by, and a little emotion in the voice. I lost my husband about a year ago. It's not an issue anymore, only because I don't know whether or not being home, and I think many of you were this past year with virtual teaching, and then lost my job in the middle of that because that administrator decided she wanted to use the money for something else. But lo and behold, Powell Elementary needs. The only thing that stressed me was after 41 years, I've never had to apply. But I'm a mom of 3. A pet mom of 2 dogs. And an adopted mother of 33 in Powell.
Yes.
I love my job. I really do. And the warmth and the sincerity and the realness of the staff of Powell Elementary is what drives me every day. I remember there's one day at school, just one. But for those of you who are younger people, just keep pushing. Just don't care how bad you feel on any given day. Get up and go anyway. Because we make such an impact on the lives of children. We have no idea. And I think we also make an impact not only on our colleagues, but the parents, because they have so many issues that we don't know about. But I can honestly say we are blessed to push on, persevere, and just be absolutely sincere as to what you do. Because I don't hold back. My principal tell me that I am myself every single day, and I deal with those children as if they have not. And I deal with their parents as if they were
Congratulations, Ms. Smith, thank you, and to all of our teacher honorees tonight. I want to close picking up on that note about the purpose of the work that you all do as educators and all the people here who are here to support our educators, which is that the reason I started EmpowerEd when I did 5 years ago, and the reason we still do the work today, is that I know teachers do not want to leave this profession. Teachers love the work that they do, and it is purpose-driven work. The money matters, but it is not about it, and it is purpose-driven work. And I feel every educator believes that in their soul, believes it in their heart, and they want to stay in that job. And it is all of our responsibilities to make sure they can stay in the job, to make sure that they can continue to serve their students. And that, as we said at the beginning, whether it is advocating for a more educational equity in our educational system at large, whether it's about changing our policies, whether it's about working the work that we do every day in our schools to ensure there's trust between our teachers and our school leaders, to ensure that we have wellness and sustainability of the culture at each of our schools. The work is about making sure our teachers are full so they can continue to pour into our students.
That's right.
And so our mission is to elevate the voices of our teachers, because we know that when our teachers lead, our students succeed.
Yes.
That when our teachers speak out, it is the kids in their heads and the families in their heads that they are thinking about every time they speak out. So when they give a testimony, right, it is not coming from a place of an agenda that they have because they got into politics, right? Because they decided they wanted to elevate their political position, or because they decided they wanted to take the next step in their leadership journey, right? When teachers speak, it is because they have students in their hearts, they have students in their minds, and they are not going to settle for anything less than the students deserve. And so it is all of our collective work to ensure everyone not in the classroom does our job to make sure they can stay in the classroom, they feel fulfilled in the work they're doing in their classroom, they can enjoy a balance in their work and their life, so they can continue to do this amazing work that they do for our students. So that's why EmpowerEd exists. That's why I'm so glad all of you are here to support this work. I wanted to do a few thank yous before we close out and let y'all chat a little bit. First, to our main sponsor of this event, Mark, raise your hand in the back. Mark Vernon, who is with the Mandy and David team at Compass, which is again and again sponsored our work and supported our teachers. To Busboys and Poets for hosting our event, donating this space. The Trade Bar, if anybody doesn't know Trade, this is Pride Weekend, so if anybody doesn't know Trade Bar, go check them out. And who has also sponsored our event today. Don't forget to vote. There's an election coming up. So we're a nonprofit organization. We don't endorse candidates, but we want to make sure every single one of you goes out and votes in this election. And your opportunity in person starts tomorrow. So you can, if you got a ballot in the mail, you can put it in your mailbox. You can put it in one of these drop boxes. There's early voting in person starting tomorrow and going for 9 days, I guess, from Friday, I think, through the following weekend. There's 1 day off, so I know people are going to show up on that day. There's 1 day off, and then it's election day on June 21st. So you can vote in person, you can drop your mail in the drop box, you can drop your mail. But think about the priorities of our educators that they've spoken today. Think about our students and our schools as you cast that vote in the coming couple of weeks. We want to encourage you, you've all done this already by being here today, but to think about how you can continue to support our work to sustain educator voice, to sustain educator organizing, to reach out to friends who might not be here, who can also sustain this work. We don't get money from Walton, we don't get money from Gates. We rely on donations from individual people because we want to be able to say to our teachers, you want to take on that issue? Okay, we don't have to check with anybody, right? We're going to take on the issues that matter to you. And we're going to fight for the core convictions that you believe are necessary for our students in our schools. So that means we need your support to donate what you can. And if you already are giving, if you consider giving $10, $15, $20 a month, which really helps us out as a sustaining donor to continue to sustain this work so we can count on that support. We haven't been able to do this yet, but our budget has increased year after year, and we want to be able to provide a little financial compensation to these teachers who give so much of their time outside of their school day. So please give generously, encourage others in your life to do the same. Support the work of teacher organizing with EmpowerEd, with our Washington Teachers Union partners, with our Coalition for DC Schools and communities and all of your ward education councils to get involved there, with our partners at the DC Association for Under Teaching for Change, of social justice educators, and all of the educator organizing that is happening in the city. So please don't forget to get involved in those things, sustain this organizing. Thank you so much for all that you've done to honor and award and celebrate our teachers tonight. Thank you so much for coming. Enjoy the food and drinks, and thank you for being here.
You're not getting kicked out right now. Keep it moving. Let's go. I just found that one.